The killing of Lyra McKee in April sent a shockwave across Northern Ireland. Lyra was one of the so-called ceasefire babies, promised a life free from sectarianism and violence. But what has instead happened is the institutionalising of sectarianism and what a British Secretary of State called, quote, an acceptable level of violence that's pertained since the ceasefires. Between 2006 and 2015, there were 1,100 bombings and shootings, 787 paramilitary-style punishment attacks. 160 people have actually died in the violence since 1998. This tragic death showed something else. It showed that ordinary people, Protestant, Catholic and others, will not tolerate an attempt to drive society back to the conflict of the Troubles. Protests and vigils initiated by the National Union of Journalists and local trades councils and by Lyra's friends and family took place in Derry, Belfast, Omagh, Enniskillen, Strabane, Cookstown, Newry, Dungannon, Dublin, Glasgow, London and elsewhere in the aftermath of her death. And these were very important events for giving expression to the widespread anger and revulsion over her death. And had the Irish Congress of Trade Unions acted to coordinate this and develop this movement against sectarianism by calling lunchtime protests, it would greatly we would be very likely to have seen protests in every single major town and city in the north, demanding that there be no going back, which became the slogan of the time. Unfortunately, this didn't happen. Those who killed Lyra McKee were on the streets carrying guns because the agreement hasn't brought the promised peace dividend. They instead live in poverty and in many cases are exposed to regular harassment from the PSNI. As Lyra herself said, we were the Good Friday Agreement generation, destined to never witness the horrors of war, but to reap the spoils of peace. The spoils just never seemed to reach us. Derry in particular has high levels of long-term unemployment, child poverty, and 95% of Derry's young people said that they saw no future for themselves in the city and couldn't envisage remaining there long term. It is this that allows paramilitary organisations to find their small base of support. They offer no way out of poverty, of course, and only increased sectarianism. The main story of the local and European elections in the north has been the rise for the Alliance Party and others. And I think this is a reflection of the desire for a break with the politics of sectarianism. There is, of course, also very clearly huge demand and desire for social progress in the north. Lyra was an LGBT activist, also an advocate for better mental health, and of course somebody who would support the growing demand for abortion rights. It's been commented with what's happening in the US by so many people, but actually, Northern Ireland is still an episode of The Handmaid's Tale. In terms of the Alliance Party, of course, advocate the same type of neoliberal policies that mean poverty for working class communities and aren't a solution. They, alongside the DUP and Sinn Féin, supported the introduction of Tory welfare reform, which has left working class families about €2,000 worse off. And at the same time, important jobs in the north are currently at risk. Bombardier's global bosses have announced their intention to sell operations in Northern Ireland. Bombardier accounts for almost 5% of the entire labour force of Northern Ireland and 10% of manufacturing GDP. The remaining 3,600 jobs are a drastically reduced figure, less than half of what it was in the 90s. The Socialist Party agree with the strong motion passed by Unite the Union at their recent conference, which said, quote, "It would do whatever it takes to defend jobs and skills at Bombardier. We will continue to raise the idea and fight for the renationalisation of this company if that's the only way to protect our members and defend local communities. We'll do whatever it takes to prevent a vulture company swooping in to pick only what they want while leaving the rest to waste. The trade union movement as a whole must come to the assistance of the Bombardier workers. At the same time, in the public sector in the north, workers are fed up with years of below-inflation pay offers. NIPSA have begun, which is the biggest union in the public sector, have begun an important ballot to reject a derisory 1.25% pay offer and changes to terms and conditions for their members. These struggles are not only essential to defend working class people, but they do point to how people can be brought together in common struggle. A huge assist in this would be the development of a party that can genuinely unite people across the sectarian divide, including dealing with issues that divide working class people in the spirit of solidarity and genuine brotherhood. The election of a Socialist Party member, Donal O'Coffey, as part of Cross-Community Labour Alternative in Enniskillen was also a breakthrough for this type of anti-sectarian working class politics and, of course, other parties and candidates of the left. Socialist Party members will work with trade unionists and other activists to help ensure that a socialist alternative for working class people is built to challenge the dead end of sectarianism and capitalism.